Revernauts. It's Chief Engineer Rever looking down on our wonderful space agency, the Reverstan Space Agency, I meant to say. Our space complex, I guess it is, right? I wanted to go over a couple of the comments just because it's hard for, I know you guys to type everything in, and it's also hard for me to explain some of this kind of stuff in detail. One of the questions was about the low orbit, and I wanted to talk about the reasons for that. If we can zoom in, we're here in the tracking center. When we're talking about this, let me actually go back out. There's a setting, and the reason I think we're getting away with the low orbits compared to a lot of the other videos that you may see. Let's escape this. We're going to go to settings, custom. We don't have the comm network enabled, but see how we have this enable extra ground stations? What that means is all around the equator of Kerbal, we have more stations. If this wasn't checked, then your only station that you would have would be at the Space Center, right? So let's just close that and resume. And then let's go back over to here, right? So in other words, where is our, I think it's over here, right? Yeah, where all those things are. Can we turn off some of that stuff? Or am I just turning on more stuff? Yeah, I don't know. I wish I could turn these off a little better. But this is where our space station is. So now if you picture from the top-down view, if this was the only place we could communicate, then this system wouldn't work, right? Because you can't get a signal through any of the planets. So in other words, this satellite couldn't speak with the other satellite. What you would need is 3 satellites, right? Where you'd have a satellite over here, say, I'm going to say this one's still here. So we have one here, and one here. Now, that really wouldn't work because they still couldn't see each other because they're going to be blocked through the planet, right? If you were to try to draw a line a third of the way around the circle. But if you make this circle bigger, then each of the 3 of them could communicate with each other, right? Because they'll be far enough away that when this one's here, this one's over here, and they could see past the planet. And I think that the minimum line, and where most guys go out to, is about 800. Like the orbit of this guy is only 200. So picture this being like 4 times as far away from the surface of the planet would put it out in this range. So that when this satellite was down here and this one was 4 times away, you see what I mean? So that's why other people are setting up, you'd want to be like a big triangle that this circle would fit in, the Kerbal would fit in, if you look at it that way. Plus you want a little room for variation. So what I was thinking, and the reason I was doing this, even though we could have done this more cheaply, like if I play through again, you can launch some really basic satellites if you're using this RemoteTech, which I think really adds like a certain degree of realism that I like, because I'm just liking the way this is turning out, and I always have. So I hope that makes sense, that I'm trying to get away with that. Now I also realized that at a certain point, without wanting to give away what we would do in future episodes, at least this was like 2 episodes ago type thing, I knew I was going to do this polar orbit one. So if you think about it, this guy is also providing coverage. Like if you look, these are the cones. Let's turn towards the moon. See, so this, can I go down? There we go. See, like this guy is providing coverage towards the moon as well. So if you put a satellite into this polar orbit, you'll have pretty good coverage, because when this guy's down here or anywhere other than like in between you and the ship. Now, if you think about it, really, for the most part, you could almost just get away with this big orbital or mid-orbit satellite here, right? So in other words, because this guy's going to give you coverage 90%. There's his connection back to the launch site, right? Or back to the planet. And, he's going to be giving you. Now, the problem with this guy is that eventually you won't get full coverage, because right now we're going to look down right on, we're more or less in the path of his orbit right now, right? Like the direction of my camera, so to speak. Well, I guess we could turn it a little bit. What's going to happen to him is he'll have really good coverage most of the time, but his orbit is always going to stay in this direction. And eventually what's going to happen is, oops, I didn't need to go out that far. Eventually what's going to happen is the moon is going to get to like right here, right? And then he's going to go behind the planet from that. You know, now he won't spend the whole day there, but it's going to be like this period of time where you would have gaps in your coverage. Now, is that important? You know, maybe, maybe not. But if you're trying to get complete coverage, you know, that's what you would do. Now, just so you know, when I built these rockets for Orbsat 1 and Orbsat 2, we can expand this orbit, and I intend to once we have a few more Kerbal bucks there, so that we can, you know, we'll expand this out to like the 850, 900, and have these guys going around further from the planet, and we'll put it like a third satellite up. So that way we just always have really good coverage. But I don't even know if we're going to do that with these, right? Because we could probably put up bigger, fancier satellites. So I'm thinking, you know, how can I get past this beginning stage when I don't have any coverage? And I don't know if you guys noticed, if you watched one of the last videos, we didn't have coverage to our satellite when we were launching that orbital satellite, because when he was real close down here, these satellites wouldn't reach him because they were blocked by the planet. See that? So we had to wait until that satellite got up here where it could get its own connection back to one of these dotted stations here. Does that make sense? Now, another question that we had, so I hope that makes sense, that this is all like a bit of an experiment to make sure it would work, but also, you know, like a real cheap way. We could have launched these satellites even cheaper than we did to get them to this low orbit, you know, and then in the future we can build a big fancy, you know, communication network when we have more money and everything else. But this gets us to the point we can do the moon flyby. So now the other question that I had was, let me go into Orbsat 1 just because it's number 1, and we're going to fly in here. And it was about the degradation, I guess is the right word, of the orbit. And if we come to here, well, we could see this one is almost exactly, I mean, that's about as close to circular as you're going to get. But let's come down to, is it this one, right? And then if we come over here, well, no, here, yeah, advanced orbit. There's our inclination. That means like how far off of the equator are we? Are we parallel to the equator? And we're not. You can kind of see we're going up a little bit, right? By 1.5 degrees. But then, yeah, they're not really giving us eccentricity here, right? No, so we can get it over here. This is one of the reasons this flight engineer is good. Not surface. No, orbit. Eccentricity. See this 0.0005? That's like really small, in other words. And it's your eccentricity, if you think about it, if you're in a perfect circular orbit, that means that as you're going around, assuming that the gravitational pull of the planet doesn't change as you're going around it. And by the way, it's one of the several reasons that it's really hard to put something in orbit of the moon. The moon does not have compared to Earth, which, by the way, the Earth's gravity is not uniform all the way around either, but it's not such a variation that it really affects the satellites much. But the moon really does have like different gravitational fields, which actually really affect, you know, like a satellite's orbit. So as you might be here and you have less gravity than when you're over here. But let's assume you have uniform gravity around the whole surface of the planet, or the whole orbit, you know, around the planet. So what happens is that as that gravity changes, it actually makes little tiny effects in your orbit. So if you have a very eccentric orbit, like for this craft where it's way further away over here, what happens is over time, this tries to become a circle again. It's an ellipse, right? And as this tries to become a circle, your orbit degrades. Like you're not going to stay in that elliptical orbit. It wants to be kind of a perfect circle. Does that make sense? Now, it may take a long, long time for it to change, but if you're trying to put satellites into orbit and you want them to follow the same path constantly, you definitely want to try to get it to be a very circular orbit. Once you're in a circular orbit, it's really going to take a long time. And this is pretty darn close to circular. Like, you're just not going to, you might have to do slight little correction burns once in a while, but really you're not going to degrade much at all from this orbit. So if we look, we're still at 39 minutes and 54 seconds. This is the important point with trying to keep like 2 satellites or 3 or 10 satellites away from each other the same distance. It's not that the periaps, these don't have to be identical for this spaceship. We're on spaceship number 1. They don't have to be identical for spaceship number 2, right? They just have to be that this period is the same. Now, the problem that we're going to have, let's go over here and switch to. So you remember this one's like 200. See how this one's a little bit different? But it's not that much different. If we come to the eccentricity, it's like that other one was like 00054. This is 00061. Right? You're really not talking about, like this is not very elliptical. It's not going to degrade very fast. If we come down here and look, we're at 3954, which means that these satellites are still, they're still spinning in a way that's putting them, very much in the same, like they're staying on the same time, even though their orbits are very slightly different. Right? Does that make sense? But the eccentricity is so small that I would expect this one's orbit to degrade very slightly different. It's going to try to go, in theory at least, to like 200,000 and 400 meters, like somewhere in between these two, right? Like in the middle, just by nature. But that's going to be such a small difference that who knows if it's even going to make any difference, because if this was off by 1 second compared to the other satellite, how many orbits do you have to make? 39 minutes times 60, seconds, and then you'd have to go around that many times before they would catch up with each other. But it is something that when you have satellites up there in real life, they make adjustments. Now, the reason they do it mostly in real life, from what I understand, I mean, I'm sure the orbits may degrade, but the main reason I think they degrade is that even though you may be there is like a definitive 70,000, there's no atmosphere, but in real life, there is like tiny amounts of atmosphere where they fly most satellites. And even that little bit of atmosphere that's way up there, still affects these things enough to cause them to, degrade their orbit, and they have to give them little puffs of energy, to try to get them back to where they want them. Especially because a lot of the satellites that we have tend to be geosynchronous. Not all of them, but they want to stay right over this spot on the Earth so that you keep your satellite dish, keeps giving you the dish network or whatever it is. So there's a lot of geosynchronous satellites up there. Now there's other ones that run around different patterns around the Earth, and either way they have to maintain those orbits. Now let's go back to this one. So when we take a look at this one, and we take a look at its orbit, see how this one's at 375 kilometers. Look at the eccentricity here is 0.17. So there's no doubt that this one is going to degrade much faster. And maybe we come back in a long time to take a look, but you'll definitely see that this one degrades far more quickly, as far as it's going to want to be circular when it's not, right? Because right now it's out of. So I hope that makes sense, right? That this one's going to want to become. Now it's still going to take this one quite a while to degrade too much, but yeah, if you put things up in orbit, you'd want them to be circular, generally speaking, or else their orbits will degrade. But again, it's with the, this one, if you look at it, at least for here, let's close this. It's even almost hard. I mean, you can see it's not a circle, but it's kind of hard to even see that it's not a circle, right? So this one's not very elliptical, and it would even take this one a fair amount of time to degrade. When you're starting to talk 0.0005, you're just not going to run into much of a degradation issue with these, and there's not much room for them to degrade, right? They're almost already a circle. So even though they will theoretically degrade, I'm not sure. We'll probably be on to the better satellite system before that one degrades. So there you go. So that's probably enough of that, right? We have things to do, but yeah, I welcome the questions, and anything I don't know, I'll look up. But like I said, it's, those were the two questions that stuck out to me for this last week's episode. All right, so let's get out of here, go back to the Space Center, and talk about what we're doing in this episode now that we burned 15 minutes of it. But hey, I think that's one of the fun things. I'm not going to stop doing that because it's fun to understand these things. And as you move forward with your Kerbal career, it's good to understand that kind of thing. Okay, so what are we doing? Let's go real quick to here. And I already had I'm going to tend to look at this before it starts, right? We're not going to do any surveys. Our tourism, we don't have anything. I mean, I don't want to do those, suborbital ones just yet. Like, if we need the money, we'll do them. Because they're not bad money, right? $69,000 for doing that. And it's certainly something we could do. The satellites, I definitely would like to do this one. And I'm thinking maybe we even just accept this. This is that other satellite orbit, if you remember from the last episode, the big red satellite orbit. And I'm pretty sure we could get out there, and we'll have to see. We might have to boost up the amount of fuel. But let's go ahead and, accept that one. Though we're not going to do that one right away, because we still have the moon flyby. And this will get us some decent money. And I'd like to get this one started first, because I think we're ready for it, having put our satellites up. Unfortunately, with our lack of money... Oh, look, that did give us money. Now, we could take a look, because we might be able to upgrade and still launch this thing, right? We might strangle ourselves with money. Actually, you know what? No, we're going to get another advance for this. Ooh, you know what? We're up to 284,000. And then what is it? Let's just go. So there we go. So we got our moon flyby mission. We got another mission to launch another satellite. I don't know if we're going to get these all done in this episode, but let's come in here. I just want to see what would it cost us to launch our existing, let's see, not puncher, low orb sat, right? Well, it tells us right there. We don't have to load it, but we might load it anyway, just because we might start here. So low orb stat is only 14,000. Yeah, you know what we're doing, guys? We're going to be able to do one of those two missions. We got a couple missions. We got our orbital mission that's up there that we're going to get some money for, even if we did nothing else. So I want to come to here, and I want to upgrade this guy so we can get more parts. That limit of 30 parts is killing us. Now we're down to 60,000, but that should be plenty enough to be able to do a couple little changes. And let's see, I should have had it open already, but I'm going to open up on my other computer my Delta V chart, because that's going to be important to this. But let's mid-orb sat. Yeah, there it is. Let's start with mid-orb sat, even though, there we go. So now what we need, if we take a look to do a moon flyby, is we need about 3,400 to get into a low orbit of this planet. In order to get to the moon, we're going to need another 860. So if we added that together, we're going to need 1,400, 4,260. And look, we only have 4196. So what could we do to get that up? Now we have, so we already have the bigger fuel tank on this guy. Now one thing we could possibly do would be, what if we put 3 of these guys on? And I'm not sure what that would do to our aerodynamics there, right? I think what we might, let's take these off. Yeah, I don't really like, we'll stick them like this. So what do we have now? Delta V 4,500. So just with that simple change, now look, we already got 31 parts. So that's sort of exactly why we did what we did. Now we should probably take this before we forget. Let's take this down. Let's take this down to 40.40, 1.4. All right, so yeah, and then we still have plenty of thrust there. Now, the other question is, yeah, that's the Terrier. Do we really want this extra stage, or are we better off just sending this guy up in one? Like, so if we take all of this off, could we get rid of this? Because it's more weight for the engine, right? And why not just have like one big rocket that's going to like send us out that way? And then we could use this guy to take us, like, finesse it there and back. So like, could we come in here and say, I don't know, what if we put another big fuel tank on? Does that make it too... Is that too much? Yeah, that's too much. So in other words, what I'm thinking is, because we're not doing little orbital maneuvers, we're just going to kind of fling it out there and wait for it to rebound on its way back. We don't necessarily need all that. Yeah, that's still wet. See, like we're actually getting a lot more efficient by not launching that engine up there. Yeah, see, we were still getting 4,800 meters per second delta V. I mean, do we even need that? Oh, I missed. Yeah, see, look, we really didn't even need that stage, I don't think. And then because we took that stage out, well, here would be the other question. Let's do this. Now, I want you on 4. All right, I don't really like... Yeah, let's move this guy up. Yeah, no, I don't want you on 4. Right, so there's 4,400 right there. I mean, is that enough extra? I mean, what happens if we just put like an extra 100 on there? Yeah, see how it's a lot of times when you're lifting this much extra fuel, you got to watch out, because you spend more energy lifting the fuel than it's worth. I mean, that's really not too bad. I mean, I could probably do it, but it's not like this cost us, you know, that much extra to have a mission failed because we don't have enough. Yeah, you know what? I feel comfortable with that. I think that this will be fine. It'll be a little bit awkward making maneuvers with this. And then we're not quite there. I don't mind adding that extra fuel, because what else would we put on here? I would want to put more science. So we got a science junior. We don't need this guy. And you know what, let's just call this Moonsat 1. Yeah, save that. That way we don't lose track of where we're at. You know, so what I'm thinking of is here I don't mind that well, do we plan on putting this into orbit anywhere? No, let's get rid of these. Well, we don't really need 2 of them, do we? No. So let's Shift X and get rid of that. So we're just going to put one of those on. Look, we're down to 26 parts. We probably didn't even need... Well, we needed to upgrade that thing. But let's come over to our science. Yeah, we don't have a barometric pressure thing on there. So let's put that up here by our thermometer. And do we have a... No, look, we don't even have a flight computer. So let's put a flight computer on there. And yeah, we got that. Yeah, unfortunately, with the limited science we have, that'll be probably all. Look, we're down to 28 parts anyway. And I think we're going to be able to get up there. We got we got enough batteries. We got enough solar power. I'm going to hit save one more time, and we're going to see what happens with the bad boy. Anything else? Let's check our staging. We'll zoom back out. Yep. Fire those 2 rockets. We got the right. Oh, no. Okay. We got to change this. See, there we go. Always check your thrust to weight ratio. Get it somewhere around 0.4. Yep, we're at 1.6. That's nice thrust for this stage here. So we decouple this stage. Decouple. Now, would we plan on... No, we're not going to try to re-enter with this thing. If it... I don't know what we'll do with it. We may re-enter, but let it just burn up. But we'll see. So we got the 2 radars we have. What else are we missing? Yeah, we're not going to try to land it again. Payload. No. Yeah, we could... Well, there's really not that much. I mean, we could do... Let's do payload. Do we have a... Oh, what is this? Oh, that's big. Is this... Yeah, there you go. You know what? Let's zoom in. And let's take... Oh, gosh, look at that. Yeah, let's see. Can we... Yeah, that's... I mean, it could probably come... Is it sticking out? I can't even hardly tell. Yeah, it looks better, doesn't it? Yeah, come here, you. Right? I mean, it's far from perfect, but yeah, can we get that guy to... Yeah, let's spin around this way and zoom in. Oops, that's not zooming in. I'm zoomed in as far as I can. You know what? I mean, it looks kind of dumb from the inside, but... Yeah, how much does that service bay? Yeah, 0.03. So it does weigh a little bit, but I think it's not going to hurt with the aerodynamics, right? Plus it makes it look a little bit better. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we're still at 0.4. Let's save this guy, and let's see if we can't do a moon flyby with our first moon satellite. Yeah, I mean, we got the record. Let's just check this real quick. Make sure we got everything. Destination the moon, any experiment, recover or transmit. Now, just out of curiosity, yeah, you know what? If we do everything well, we could even put this guy in orbit around the moon. If we find that we can do that, we don't have to recover. We just have to transmit the data. So I think we could get credit for this and leave this guy in orbit, which we just may do if we can. If we can't get into an orbit, that's a different issue. All right, so let's go. Enough talking. What, a half hour of talking? Let's get some action going finally. All right. Yeah, I'm nervous. Why am I nervous? Because I think I'm going to fail. Okay, well, nerves aside, we need to move on with it. So let's come in here. We'll get this open. So as we get up to a certain point, we're going to hit this gradient plus button. But I think we're ready to go, right? One last check of staging. Well, we just checked it, but I never mind. Never a bad idea to double check, right? All right, so let's see. Yep, let's just go do it. 3, 2, 1, go. right, pretty good escape off the launch pad, going to the wrong direction a little bit. Like I said, we really want to get this guy. Ooh, getting squirrely already. No. What are you doing? Now, once we get rid of these boosters, I'm going to hit that gradient plus button. Hopefully the spacecraft will kind of take over on its own, whatever it thinks is best. Hopefully that's what I think is best. I do need to learn to set that thing up a little bit better as time goes on. There we go. That'll work kind of nice. We'll stay right on that 90 if we can, because it's actually important to be able to intercept the moon. Don't tilt too much. We want to try to keep, you know, our speed through the atmosphere pretty good, and I don't want this thing getting squirrely on me. There we go. Oh, we didn't put our throttle up. That's right. Turn it up now. Now let's hit this gradient button. There we go, and it should take us up at a pretty nice clip on the 90, I hope. I'm going to give it a little more throttle. Don't tilt too much, buddy. So it's doing nice, you know. It's not a bad thing pulling us around in our orbit. We can cut the engine off when we get up to about 80, because we don't need the most, you know, we want to try to keep this low just so that we don't need a fancy high orbit, right? So we're up about, there's 80, and we got a minute and 50 seconds to get this planned out. Let's add a maneuver and get this spread out. Whoops, too far. Yeah, we don't want to spend too much time. I'm going to make sure. Let's pull this down. There we go. Now if we click this, we want to get this inclination to 0, right? So see how we're way off, so we want to burn up. We're real close to 0. Oh, we went too far the other way. Now, the reason for that is, yeah, so let's just go, because we're not actually on the equator, right? Like, all right, so let's, how many minutes do we have? Yeah, let's go tell this guy to execute that maneuver, and he should be pulling us in right around to here. Let's see, let's go back to maneuver. Yeah, that's not too bad. 93. You know, hopefully it works out as planned. So we'll see what happens here. Now, I like this because this is, I think, how satellites work. Now, look at our blue line, you know. Like, in other words, there's nobody up there that you can control with your Xbox controller. Not because we don't have a pilot in there. You would have to have either pre-programmed this maneuver, or you would have had to, you know, have some kind of signal telling the program what to do. Now, do we have enough? Yeah, we should have enough delta V. Let's, if you look at our vessel, we have 30 or 1,500, and we only have to do 500. So that's good. So we should have plenty. Just in this stage, we'll have plenty to get us launched towards that. That means that whole second stage could get us into orbit of the moon, assuming we get our flyby thing going. There we go. So where did our orbit end up? Yep, just as expected. Very nice. So we're in good shape. So now at least we're not going to fall back to Earth. Now, we're not perfectly flat. And what we could do is we would have to look at where we're ascending node and descending node. So can we, you know, where can we, I'm forgetting right now. Oh, no. Did I really click on that? Focus Kerbin. No. Moonsat 1. No. You know what we can do? We can go out of this mode and then back into it. So I forget how to get, I know you can do it, but we need to get the ascending and descending node if we wanted to get perfectly. See, we still have, if we look at our orbit, the inclination is still 0.58, and we would have to figure out exactly where it is, but there's just sort of too much going on for me right here to, you know, now might not be a bad time to burn. Yeah, you know what? Can we add a maneuver? Oh, yeah, on the other side is fine. I can see how we can burn here. Let's close this. See how this is up from this angle and this is way down? So we could probably add a maneuver here where we burn down and got that a little more. See if we come here to this. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, that's making it worse. Nah, that's not a good place to burn. You know what? It's probably all close enough. How close are we? If we kind of, you know what? We're all close enough. Let's just get rid of this. All right. So now what we want to do is we know that when we get to about moonrise, which is going to be, but there's too many things on this screen as far as. Let's get rid of some of this kind of stuff. Let's go back to the vessel real quick. Let's get our satellite or antenna activated. Let's get our solar panels activated. Let's get our other antenna activated. Yeah, I'm not going to do a materials study now. We're going to try to save our science for when we get out there. Okay, so now let us go back to the maneuver. And we want to look for moonrise. So we're going to want to launch somewhere like right here. Right? And I'll show you what I mean. So let's zoom out so we can see. See, when you get close, there it is. So now our periapsis there would be 774. But one of the things we have to do, if we look at our contract up here, is, here, we can close some of this stuff. Low situation, low in space, but we would need to be low in space around the moon, right? So we need to get closer than that if we can. Ooh, that's a nice, yeah, look at that, 28. That's almost too much. Or too close. At 153. Oop, now we're going to hit the moon. 81. You know, chances are it's not going to end up that accurate anyway. 15. Here, you know what? Let's use this thing. Yeah, see, even little adjustments. Yeah, let's turn this down. Let's get it to be about like 50, 40, 48. There we go. So that's our maneuver in 13 minutes. We're going to have to burn 849 vessel. Good, we have 927 on this, still on this stage. We're going to be able to get into an orbit. So I'm hoping we can, you know, and it's not going to be bad to have a satellite out there, right? It can become part of our network. Oh, we should have put another one of those antennas on it, though. That's all right. We'll see what happens with it. We'll see how it goes. All right, good. So I'm pretty happy with that. Let's close our contracts. And yeah, I think we should do this burn, just fast forward to it. So let's hit execute. And what I like to do is hit node before I start the fast forward time, just so it starts moving this guy over. Just in case 3 minutes isn't enough to move it, which it should be plenty of time. But because we have this big honking, because, you know, we still have the big honking engine and everything on here, you know, I'd like to get it to be where it's lined up already. Just that way we know we're close after we fast forward. Now, if you notice, we're pointing at the moon, sort of, but we're almost pointing at our retrograde. That's because by the time we get around to the other side in 13 minutes, we'll be pointing in the right direction. Okay, so now let's, we should have an alarm, so let's hit 50 times fast forward, maybe back off a little bit so we don't get seasick. See what I mean? So we're still pointing in the same direction, and now we're on the other side. We're actually pointing more towards our prograde. And then Kerbal alarm clock and the thing take care of stopping us. So we'll close the alarm. And let's close this vessel thing. And we got our flight computer, so let's give it a little bit of a time boost till we get down. It's a 16-second burn, so let's slow down when we get to, like, I don't know, 30 seconds or something left in the time there. Okay, 14 seconds left to go. Yeah, I'm surprised we're doing really well on fuel. And we could do possibly a slight correction burn, and I think we may lose this section of the aircraft, even though we might have a little bit of fuel left in it. There we go. Now let's take a look at this so we can watch our orbit go out there and see where we end up. All right, so we ended up with no periapsis of the moon. We're going to hit the moon and die. Which is fine. Well, it's not good, but we could make an adjustment here pretty quickly. So what we should do is let's, how many minutes? Yeah, 5 minutes. We'll add another little slight burn maneuver so that we can... It's not saying that, but we're also not getting a periapsis here, which I think means, if we pull this back a little bit, what do we want to be? Yeah, I can't really... Yeah, sometimes this gets to be a bit of a pain to try to see. Moon periapsis. Yeah, so let's make this smaller. I want that moon periapsis, like I said, let's shoot for like about 50. Being close, there's no atmosphere on the moon, so it's not like we have to worry about that, right? Now can we do... Yeah, see, it's not really giving us the moon periapsis there. There we go, 57. That's going to be, I'm pretty sure that's low, considered low. So let's execute this maneuver. And we might as well give it a little fast forward boost. Now, if you notice, let's see. It's going to be 4 hours before we get to the moon encounter. So we'll have a little time to go get our satellite launched. I kind of lost track of the time that we're actually in this episode, so we might not do anything with that other satellite. I'll have to take a look. Here we go. Yeah, let's just see this. So this guy automatically moved over, and that's what this hold maneuver prograde means. So what it's doing is it's going basically to the prograde or to this marker here. Which this is where the prograde should be for the burn. Like, as we change our orbit, this will come around in the next couple seconds here. Yeah, so let's see how big, like 0.1 seconds. Yeah, this might not be the most... This is one of the reasons to get rid of the big rocket section, right? So we'll get this down to about 20 seconds. Hit the regular play. Oh, look, we could do telemetry. Let's let the burn go first, and we'll double check all this, and then there we go. Periapsis 52,000 meter, 52 kilometers. So good. So that little tiny burn actually made a difference. Now what I want to do is let's come back over to here. And yeah, like how much do we actually have delta V? See, it's only 76 meters per second delta V. I don't think that's going to make a difference And even though this guy's going to follow us out there and float around in space forever, I think I want to just do the staging and get rid of that. So that way we just have a lighter, lighter craft. Now we can do science. Now I don't want to do all the science, but we're going to click on this guy and perform all science. Yep, and we're not going to do the material study, right? Because I want to do that around the moon to get the most benefit. So that one we're going to reset, but then each one of these we're going to send. There, so we got some good science, I think, for that. I didn't really notice the exact amount, but yeah, so we should be able to get some science throughout this thing, and then we can, those experiments we can send all over repeatedly. It's just that MaterialsGoo study that you can't keep doing, unless you have a scientist on board, which we don't. All right, so we're heading out. Our power is, not impressive, but we got to get out from behind the sun there. So, all right, well there we go. I think this guy is in as good a shape as we can get him in at this point. So what I would like to do is shrink this guy up, and then now something we can do. Yeah, look, see how we would escape. This isn't the greatest if we ever wanted to return. But I'm thinking that what we're going to plan on is a maneuver at the periapsis there, right, where we try to see, can we get into a moon orbit, which that is a moon orbit. It's a very eccentric one. Can I you got to sort of do... Well, maybe there's a better way to do this, but that's the way I do it, right? Then we can't really see our... Yeah, one way or the other, I can't really see too well. There we go. Can I grab that guy? Yeah. Yeah, look at that. Good enough. 231, periapsis 68. We, if we wanted to, we can deal with it from there, but that's only going to use about what, a third of our fuel? Not even. Like we would have plenty to decide whether we want to leave that orbit or just leave this guy out there. So we really ended up with like way more fuel than we needed, but I'd rather have too much than too little, right? So let's, for now, set a alarm for this guy to go to, add an alarm. So the sphere of influence, SOI, change. So in other words, when we get to this point, we're going to have another alarm where we can take a look at where we're at. And that's going to be in 4 hours and 41 minutes. Let's go ahead and add that alarm. So now we have two. We have Puncher 5, which has still got 10 days up there. But we can come back to this guy in 4 hours. And in the meantime, we can go, talk about getting that other flight going. So, yeah, let's take a final look at him. Yep, there he goes. He's in the sun. And he probably will be in the sun the rest of the trip. So our batteries are charging up, or are charged up nicely. And we can close the alarm clock and the vessel. Oh, you know what? Let's hit execute. Just so one of the things we can do, just so you know, is if we were to lose the signal, right? We're not connected. This would still burn, which I like because it's sort of like, well, you can plan a maneuver around the dark side of the moon in a sense where where your signal is dark anyway, because you could program a computer to, burn when you're on the other side. Now you can't change the program or anything, but it would still be kind of interesting to do. So, anyway, there we go. Hold maneuver. Okay, yeah, look, that maneuver is, just to give you an idea too, when we look at this map, like, see how that's 4 hours? Look at the time here is like 1 day. So it's going to take like another 6 hours to draw closer to the moon. But I don't mind having that just so we can get a reminder to go look at it, right? And plus it's kind of cool when you get to that point, switching sphere of influence. So cool. All right, let's go over to the Space Center. Okay, I stole over and had a quick look at the recording time, so we're pretty much at the end of the episode. I don't want to get into too much more, but let's go take a look at a little final wrap up. Now I'm going to record these episodes back to back, so if you leave comments, I'll try to answer them again in like next Tuesday's video, right? Episode 9, I think that would be. So. And I'll answer them in the comments of the video as well, but let's see what we're doing and how we're doing. So as far as our active contracts go, bring one tourist to low Kerbin orbit. Yep, we're working on that. And it's just, he's probably completed it darn near by now. Yeah, he's only was supposed to be up there for an hour. We're keeping him up there for 72 hours for this manned orbit. So hopefully we can bring them back safely. Our moon flyby is started. And so in the next episode, which for me in real life will be 10 seconds from now in a sense, or 2 minutes, we will try to get into this specific orbit. So what we'll do is just see about modifying that satellite. As we launch these satellite to specific orbits, we might as well make them communication satellites, right? They won't hurt. They might clog up the sky, but eventually, I guess we could always destroy them or whatever. There is an option, by the way. This game does tend to get intensive. So let's just come into here real quick. Like after a while, you tend to get a bunch of stuff. And one of the things you should definitely do is this debris. Right? So if we look here, like for example, with that last moon satellite. See, we have this, if we zoom in, well, I don't know if we can go close enough. But remember we launched that debris at the last second, and I like the fact that the debris is up there in some ways, but what you can actually do is come up here and terminate this debris, and it'll help your computer, especially, my computer's pretty powerful, but even then, like you get enough of this junk, like there's 5 of them up there already, and if you keep playing, so do come in here and like terminate this. Are you sure you're going to kill any crew that's in that debris? Yeah, so if we just hit terminate, boom, see it's gone. So now we only have 4 debris. So, if these things aren't going to, naturally go back to, see this thing's in this orbit, like right here. Now that might degrade eventually and end up, well, I don't think it's ever going to crash back into there. But see, so we can just come along to these debris. Now be careful, of course, right? You don't want to. Make sure that what you're actually terminating truly is debris, right? So if we come here, we could get rid of this debris from this earlier flight. See the yellow there? And again, it helps. It's less calculations at that point. Is it cheating? I don't really think so, but again, it just doesn't hurt to terminate those things so your computer's doing less. Puncher 4, yeah, we left some debris in orbit there. And that should be the last one. There we go. So there we go. So there's all of our, now we don't, this is still lit up, but we don't have any debris. And just again, it's 5 less orbits that this thing's going to be calculating constantly. And once in a while, it's good to do that. All right. Well, I hope that was helpful to you. All right, guys. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the video. And when we come back in a minute, we will be right in the same exact location, and we will see about getting that low orbit satellite going. And then we might need to fast forward some time. Let's take a real quick look at our alarms. There we go. So we have the moonsat, which we're waiting for the exit of the orbit. Well, getting into the sphere of influence of the moon is probably a better way to say that. Exit of our orbit of Kerbal. And then we have Moonsat 1 maneuver. Okay, so when we hit the execute button, it gave us another one. So that's good. So we know in one day, which is 6 hours, not too much different than this. But getting all the way out there takes us 4 hours, and then it takes another 2 to go that little distance. So, and then Puncher 5, yeah, he's just going to be up there a while. And we really didn't spend that much time in this episode, so I'm assuming that those guys are doing fine. Let's hope so. Oh, but look, we got a good amount of science. Oh, and I forgot. Let's do one last thing. I always have one last thing, don't I? Let's just go check. Is there any science we can do on on this mid-orb satellite, right? So let's go. Or did we just do it when we did the other one, right? So let's fly this guy. And materials study. You know what? We might as well do that materials study. I don't see where we'd ever have, you know, a reason. No communications. What? Why don't you? Let's take a look at that. Why are we not connected? Orbit. Oh, yeah. Oh, we're not connected. Can we... Yeah, see that? So we're not connected because we're not connected. And then we didn't tell, like we're too far away from the thing. So what we would need to do, yeah, let's go, or you know what, let's go back out to this mode. It's a little easier, I think, to, oh, we can't even click there. Can we click on this? Yeah, that one's set to there. This is set to active vessel. Can we change this while we're... Yeah, like can we point it at low orbs? Well, see, one of these others might be missing too. So this is a little problem with our thing that, you know, we're not in a line of sight apparently at this point with that. Now we could wait until we get to the equator, right? Like, but what if we said, yeah, you know, I think I'm not going to worry about it right now, but that's interesting that we're, you know, if we look back at our thing, we're not in line with any of those. Now, how far away are we? Yeah, we should still be well within range. Or no, are we? What is the limit of, well, no, we shouldn't be too far away, I don't think. No, you know what? The limit is 2,500. So in order for this guy to help us, we would have to be under, not 25, yeah, 2,500 kilometers or 2.5 million meters. So yeah, we're just too far away for this guy to communicate directly. But that's okay. You know what? We would get back under it right here, and then we can always tell this guy to communicate with one of these satellites. Why isn't he communicating with one of those satellites? Because this is the active vessel, right? Is it because these guys aren't set to active vessel? No, they should be. Let's turn on this stuff. Yeah, why aren't we picking up a signal? Yeah, see, that guy's pointing here, but this guy isn't. Yeah, let's just try something. I'm just curious. Yeah, switch from active vessel. That was 1. That's OrbSat 1. Connected. There we go. So we might have to play with that, right? Like I wish. Yeah, there's no real way to say. Yeah, we don't want to do active vessel. There's no particular, like if this one wasn't in range, then we would have to switch this back and forth. But I'm okay with that. As long as we can come in here when we want to and switch it. If we come back here and look, there we go. See, now we're connected via that guy one way or the other, right? Even though now it makes it look like we have more connections than we did. So I don't fully understand why we have 3 lines there. But that's all right. As long as we have 1 line. And now look, it appears to be, I don't know. Well, whatever. We're connected. That's the point. There's an awful lot of lines there. It's good enough for me. I'm happy. I hope you guys have enjoyed the episode, and we will talk to you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.